now, Jonathan Kott. He served as communications director and senior advisor to Senator Joe Manchin for 7 years. Also with us, John Heilman, NBC News and MSNBC national affairs analyst. He is executive editor of The Recount, where he hosts the Hell and High Water podcast. Jonathan, this is something you never saw when you were working in the Senate, this two-track approach. In the last 24 hours, I have to say, especially with the comments from Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema, what the president said today in the presence of those Republicans in the driveway indicates that it actually is taking shape this way. And as much as important as it is for Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema to be on board with it, it seems those Republicans are also on board, in effect, with the Democrats going off and doing a separate reconciliation bill.
Yeah. Senator Manchin and his colleagues crafted a great bipartisan bill. They worked together. And I think everybody has always thought there would be a two-track system. I don't think Senator Manchin made any news. He said he was going to support these things. He thinks we should find ways to pay for it. And I think you're going to see Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi work to get both of these things done. And at the end of by the time we go on August recess, you're going to see Joe Biden having accomplished a lot that moderates and progressives can be very happy with.
John Hyland, we have seen Mitch McConnell's attack plan on this. He's basically saying that he hasn't said it in these words yet, but in effect what he's saying is this Republican agreement with Democrats is enabling the Democrats to get their left-wing wish list, as he will call it, in the other bill. That seems to be the way Mitch McConnell will try to pull at least two Republicans away from this bill.
Yeah, I think that's right, Lawrence. And I think, I think they have done to this point a masterful job. And I'm right with you when you confirm my read of what's going on in the Senate. It always makes me feel good because it makes me think I might be right. To see the way that the progressives have lined up and have seen, the signs that are coming out just in the last 24 hours. I think I, like you, was a little dubious maybe 48 hours ago. I think they've been masterful so far. I think the question now, though, is whether the fact that it is falling into place, is there a possibility that gives McConnell enough time to work the strategy that you're talking about and make clear? I mean, if he really tries to lean hard on his people, on his caucus, and make it clear to them, or enough of them, the two you're talking about or more, that the agreement that they're signing off on right now is enabling this larger bill to happen, and be able to bring some political pressure or internal institutional pressure, party pressure, whatever kind of pressure you want to talk about, can he, now that he has it in his sights, does that give him enough time to do the McConnell stuff, the killjoy stuff that he's such a master of? And that, I think, is the one question I have right now. Is it falling into place a little too quickly and neatly, potentially for its own good in that context?
Well, Jonathan, in many ways, the real Republican leader on the Republican side of the Senate is Donald Trump. And so what is Donald Trump going to do? What can he do in the coming weeks and months to pull, as of tonight, all he has to do is pull two Republicans off the bipartisan bill and it collapses?
I don't think Donald Trump's going to be able to pull two Republicans off this bill. This bill is negotiated over a long period of time. And the thing I just want to point out, these people are friends. This came together because they all work together on a regular basis. They have dinner. They've built a relationship. So this isn't like 10 people just got in a room and decided to chop it up over, who would get what in what spending bill and who would get infrastructure and who would get water and highways. These are 10 people who trust each other. I think, if anything, this list is going to grow. And I understand Don's skepticism. And Lawrence, I know you've been watching the Senate for more years than I've ever been there. Yeah, I would be skeptical, too. But I think there's a better chance that this list grows to 70 senators than it shrinks to 59.
No, John, I think Jonathan's got a real point there. It does have an equal chance to go to 70 than to go down from 61. And the big question is, what does Mitch McConnell really want? Does Mitch McConnell really want, in fact, this bipartisan infrastructure bill to pass so that he can get that bridge that he doesn't have to vote for, connecting Kentucky to Ohio, very important bridge over the Ohio River? Does he want that to happen? Or does he want, as he always does on everything else, to derail Joe Biden. That's the decision for McConnell.
Yes, and I think that's why I want to be clear. I'm not skeptical, to Jonathan's point. I'm just trying to look down the road and see where the point of maximum vulnerability is. And I think we obviously know who the point of we know who the sharpshooter is here. We know that McConnell's going to try to make some kind of move, and the fact that this might not get voted on for some number of weeks, potentially not all the way into the fall when this thing finally gets to final passage, it means there's a lot of time. There's a lot of yardage out there, right? So I think your question, Lawrence, is the right question. And I think that it not only is it the right question, but the answer to it depends on, in that period of time, what happens to the public support of the bill over the weeks that elapse between now and final passage. And that, I think, is going to determine, to some extent, what McConnell decides. And that is, to some extent, in the hands of the White House and Democrats. Can they go out and make this thing more popular? If they can make it more popular, including in red states, we will end up with 70. If it erodes in popularity, that is when McConnell will be a very great danger to it along the lines we've been laying out.
Well, if this succeeds, this is a big blow against McConnellism in the United States Senate. And so that's at stake for him, too. Jonathan Kott, thank you very much for your expertise on this tonight. We really appreciate it. John Heilman, please hang around. You're going to be joining our discussion about Rudy Giuliani losing his life.